Okay, I was just driving down the road. I had to go to the post office, and I was thinking about you because we're about to come into the studio. And I was thinking about all that you have going on, and an impromptu song started playing in my head that goes like this. It was this. It was, it's harvest time. It's harvest time. It's harvest time in California. Ah, it goes like that. So it is harvest time.
It is.
And
it's going along well. We had kind of a laugh, me and the crew, this morning because it was, smooth sailing. Worked over the weekend, of course, work every day. And, yesterday I was just cruising around. Everything seemed like so in order. And then this morning, it's like, what are we picking when? Where are we going to put it? What's wrong with everything? And so we dialed it in. Get it back. It's just one of those things you kind of like, it's like getting off balance. You got to get back on the board again. But we're cruising along. We have a heat spike, a little bit warmer weather at the end of this week. And I'm letting some stuff hang out and just get a little bit more ripeness there. And then we have potentially a rain event next Wednesday. Not this week, but like 10 days out. So that's usually not super reliable. But I think my stuff will all be ready. So I might be finished picking by October 23rd. Something like that. October 24th.
And then is it like it's like accountants after tax season? Does everybody that are winemakers just go, okay, now for the next 4 weeks, I am going to sit on a beach or I'm going to play golf, or I'm going to whatever?
No, for the next 4 weeks, I'm going to ferment the grapes that I've been picking.
Okay. Just goes right to it.
So it's like, we'll be back to a normal schedule, by Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. And, I like to try to take the 4 days off at Thanksgiving. That's kind of my big hurrah. This year it's a little later. It might not be possible, but we won't be going crazy at Thanksgiving. But I also won't have like all my wine in barrel. I'll have it finished fermenting off the skins, but it might still be in tanks and stuff like that. So there's just a whole process to wind it all down.
Yeah, you're getting me excited. Get me excited about Thanksgiving.
It's going to be good. Oh, Thanksgiving, too.
Thanksgiving and wine at Thanksgiving this year.
But
more excited than ever.
You know that Thanksgiving has always been a big deal to me, and that's precisely why. I mean, I liked it as a kid growing up, but now it's kind of this like celebration of harvest.
Yes, I get it. Okay, so this was my first time getting to see harvest. I just came back from California to be with you. Mm-hmm. Last week? Are we talking about last week? Time flies that
crazy.
Fast?
You know what? My truck that we took to the Toyota dealership to get fixed, it's still there. I haven't had time to go pick it up.
Last week. So today I was like, as I said, as I'm driving back, harvest time. It's harvest time. I'm thinking this song, but I'm also thinking about all the little things that have to happen with a winemaker during harvest time. For people like me, the novices of the world that don't know anything other than I like to drink wine. Hello. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But here's my assessment. Being a winemaker at harvest time, here are all the little hats that you're wearing.
Yep.
You're farmer, right?
Yep.
There is some part of you that is botanist and or crossover to chemist.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
There is a logistics manager that could be nightmarish.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You may have to be even attached to meteorology in some portion, right? Meteorologist.
Of course.
To make your decisions for logistics.
Of course.
Right? And then you have to be, I don't know, marketing guy,
and then accountant.
Hey, hang on. And then therapist.
Yes.
Wow.
That's very, very important part of the thing.
Yeah.
Is diplomacy and making sure everybody's happy.
Yes. Man, oh my. There's a lot of hats.
There's a lot of hats.
It's a lot of hats that are being worn.
But I like it.
I like it. I like it too. Hey, yeah. I was going to tell you a little story. There was a time a long time ago in the film business that was a huge commercial production with a director who's a DP who won an Academy Award by the name of Robert Richardson. Right? Now, me with my job, similar to things that you have going on as a winemaker, but maybe not as many as you had in the art department as art director, whatever, is there's a lot of responsibility and logistics and stuff to get it where it is. Again, not as many. I don't have to do potentially therapist or whatever, but me and who I'm working with pull up to the site where we're going to be filming that day. That it looks like a huge movie set already. It's one of those army jobs, where the army dudes are coming out of the water. You've seen them, right? Big budget thing. And there's this PA that I forget even what his name is. I think his first name was Lee, but we just, for whatever reason, in one of my nicknames, I named him Mullet Fish. Mullet Fish. Now, Mullet Fish looked like one of the members of Leonard Skinner.
Did you call him Mullet Fish to his face?
Yeah, just Mullet Fish. I'd say mullet, and mole. Yeah. Because he had a mullet. He had this awesome mullet. Yeah. He had a ball cap on always, all the time ball cap, but then the mullet was real frizzy, again, looking a bit like Ronnie Van Zant or whatever, if you know what that looks like. Although, but Mullet Fish was like a shorter stature. So he was kind of like, of a shorter, smaller, like Hobbiton Ronnie Van Zant. Yes. Right? So we pull into this thing like figuring what the hell are we going to do today? How the hell are we going to get through this day? Where do we even start? And we're looking just from directions from our PA. His job, it's give directions, put chairs up for lunch, do whatever you're called for at that time, right? So I roll into this. Now, this is an important lesson because like your own hierarchy and perception of who you are, everyone's busy in their own responsibilities. I go, Mullet, hey, bro, where do we park? We got to get this shit underway. And I was like, what you got? And he goes, man, I'm wearing so many hats, I don't even know what to do with myself. So I had to take this moment. Yeah. When I thought of myself, I was like, no, actually, I'm wearing too many hats. I don't know what to do with myself. Right. And I feel that in what you have going on, not to minimalize his importance to the overall deal. I was like, there's a real perception there in terms of like what your responsibility is. So I will say this. In that moment where I was on that set thinking, I have all the shit going on. I was watching you last week, all those things that you said. Yeah. You could wear the hat of Mullet Fish and you had more things than you knew what to do with yourself. Yeah, that's the way it goes. I mean, and sometimes it's like someone asks you a question, you just stare at them. Like, yeah. I don't know what language you're speaking. It's like so confusing, but it's fun. It's challenging, Okay. Well, where we left off, we have now this that we're talking on right now. We have launched this podcast. Drop the Check it's out to the world. I love it. I mean, it's just such a rewarding thrill just to see our Drop the Check logo up there on Spotify or iTunes or whatever the case may be, and of course our wonderful friends and supporters out there who actually dialed in and listened it up, and again, a lot of interesting feedback that I think people generally like it. That's a good thing. Yeah, and listen, there's also something that is going on that you should know about, and everybody should know about, because it's going to be very, very important to all of us very soon. Okay. Let's just say that's the first episode of Drop the Check, right? Yes. There's going to be several more. There's one coming up again here today, which is the second part of our conversation with Joey Wagner, right? He'll answer to all of them. But there is something going on that I can't talk about now. What? People, now hang on. I'm on the edge of my seat. Hang on. It's going to slowly build up in this story with something from a little company called Topo Chico. Oh. How about that? How about that for a teaser?
I love it. Do you know that probably of all the comments that I got more comments about Topo Chico than anything else? They loved it.
Yes. Okay. Well, stay tuned, listeners, because something is happening with Topo Chico.
I love it. I'm glad that I'm learning this as we go too.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Look, bro, you can't spill it all at once. People wouldn't be able to handle it. They'd be like mullet fish, standing there, at 4:00 in the morning, wearing too many hats to know what to do with themselves. Okay, we've got Joe Wagner today.
I love
the second part of this.
Let's roll into it.
Let's jump into it. Welcome to Drop the Check. Today's episode is part 2 of our conversation with winemaker with great hair and a knack for TikTok. Let's welcome back Joseph Wagner.
So I don't know how we're doing on time, but before we go too far, can you then we went to from Camus as a young kid working in that cellar, and then starting Bell Gloss, moving that into Mayomi, but it's still at the same time there are other product lines, other brands that you developed. Can you go through? There's a litany of them.
Yeah, there are now. Well, so growing up in a family business where so the ownership of, say, like Bell Gloss is separate from the setup that we had to facilitate sales and admin of the business, and so this brand Mayomi had grown to be a monster, and I was doing experiments in other areas. I was making wine out of Oregon, and I was like, I really want to bring this out to market and start a new brand and all that stuff. And I had my own ideas, and I was, on the lower side of 30, I guess, or maybe even in my late 20s. And so I started talking to my dad about it, and I said, hey, look, I want to expand these things, and here are the options as I see them. And family business can be tough at times.
Yeah.
And so I also looked at some of the templates of what had happened in the past with many of the family businesses, which unfortunately there's not a lot of them anymore, at least, especially at a reasonable volumetric level. But so, Mondavi, recently you've had Frank family, just like in the last week, you got Rombauer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these acquisitions they're massive. Yeah. I mean, 500 million to $1 billion. I mean, these are big huge acquisitions.
Yeah.
So I was like, how do we maintain our family being in the industry? Mm-hmm. And oftentimes you have to look at generational issues in the other people that came before us, 100%. and learning from that. And so I said, look, I think I was already having kids, and I've got 6 in total now. And I'm like, did
you hear that, Mike? He has 6 kids.
I heard
6 kids.
Mic check.
That was
looking
6
for my
kids.
own,
There's 6 kids.
Looking for my own glass of wine after that. I got nervous.
I got.
And so I'm like, I don't think that it's going to be healthy if they come into the industry and start developing brands underneath this whole portfolio that we currently have. What if I go out and do this? I'm able to bring my dreams to life and then facilitate something for them. So while I still have, involvement, ownership and whatnot with some of the things over on my family side, this was really intended to be something that I could do for me and my kids for future generations. So we started Copper Cane in 2014. We had a few brands already established: Bell Gloss, Mayomi, Elawan, which is our Oregon project that jumped in next. Shortly after that was Quilt, which is our Napa Valley, predominantly cab. We do some Chardonnay and red blends. And then more recently, getting into a little more competitively priced stuff. So Bowen being, a number of Pinot Noirs and a Chardonnay that are, kind of everyday priced. And then most recently the Thread Count, which is kind of it's Paso Cab and a red blend. And those are kind of like your entry level. Like I look at it like I want people to be able to say, okay, I'm going to try that wine at $20 retail or whatever. And if I like it, then, give them confidence to, I guess I'm going to go back on this. You think about somebody who's been drinking $7 to $10 bottles of wine, right? You want them to have that experience. So if they go to a restaurant and they buy a glass of wine for, say, $12, right?
Yeah.
Then, and that equates to roughly a $20 retail that they can find it. So they like that wine. They go, hey, I like that wine. And they'll go buy it, and you stretch them up almost double what their average price per bottle is.
Right.
Once they get that confidence and they see that added value in the product, then that gives them confidence to move up the ladder even further.
Correct.
And so you got to have these like stepping stones, as I see it.
100%.
And it's it's something that, not a lot of portfolios do, but I think it's something that works well for us. And then everybody's aspirational, right? They're not going to sit on their laurels. You started with a beater Nissan Maxima that's got 20 years on it.
Hey,
right?
hold on. I did start with a Nissan Maxima.
That's what I started with. That's my first car. So, and then 20 years later, 10 years later, you've found some success. You've got a career started, whatever else. And you move up to like whatever. It could be a brand new, call it brand new Jeep or something, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm not going back to the
That's
used Nissan
true.
Maxima.
That's right.
And every time you take that step and better your life in some way, you feel better about yourself. And, and you never want to go backwards.
Yeah.
And it's just human nature. And I think that wine is no different. Once you see
100%
break those barriers, then
Well, hold on. I just said 100%, but that goes exactly against what I was saying about. I guess I actually was doing a tasting yesterday, and it was not an expensive wine, but it was terrible. And I said in this tasting, I was like, this wine makes me angry. It's like, but so I do. There are some wines out there that like I just don't want to drink that. And it's not being student. It's not really price point driven, but how about quality driven?
Yeah.
I only want to drink quality wines right now. But at the same time, sometimes I want just something refreshing and I'll have a spritz, and it's like nothing wrong with that. I'll go back down the ladder, but you're absolutely right. Once let's put it that way, not on price point, but it's perceived quality. Then you're like, I can't tolerate. It's like once you've had great beef, I will never have a shitty steak again in my life. I only eat when I'm cooking. I only eat Akaushi beef. We had do you know Will Dinsberger?
No.
He's a real estate
Well, hang
agent.
on. Let me go into something that both of you guys are saying as winemakers, as the guy that's here that doesn't know what you guys know, and your stepping stones. So I can understand from your story, your metaphor or whatever, of going from the beater car that you got tape or wire holding the muffler up or whatever, or however fast it's going, it's smoking or whatever, to the Jeep. I get that, like you legitimately are making a stepping stone up in your quality of ride that you have, and your next thing that you're going to or whatever, that's the Volvo or whatever, the thing that you're going. It legitimately, I don't think that there's a lot of subjectivity in this stepping stone that you have up for what you guys are saying. And Robbie, you said you had a glass of wine. So somebody brought it there. They thought it was good for some reason, right?
Yeah.
That you say it's shit. It made you angry. Okay. To you
Everyone
guys,
agreed that it was bad.
okay.
I know the
to
feeling.
you guys, stepping stones, how is it? What is like your qualifications? And because, let's say stepping stone too, let's say the person that gets into the Jeep is like, by golly, I'm never moving off of the Jeep, because the Jeep, for what it is that I have, what is it that you guys as the winemakers are knowing you're setting the stepping stones up makes you to the next level, confidently to the next level?
I mean, I could jump in because I think that cars, wines, whatever product you are talking about, there are so many preferences, and it comes down to just your personal likes, right? So
Agreed.
I know right off the bat, like let's say 50 to 75% of the general public of wine drinkers probably don't like our wine style, and like, but there's like all these little caveats to it, right? So if you're capturing, let's just say it's 25% of the wine consumers in America that like your style, and you can get them to experiment throughout your portfolio, get some ideas as to what other wine producers make wines like yours, then you're winning. I mean, that's it. And so you got to say, like, I've got sommeliers that give me crap all the time. I started off my career with a bunch of like 78 point scores.
I didn't know that.
Like it was rough the first couple of years, because everybody was looking at it like, oh, it needs to taste like Burgundy. And you got to think of this in a blind tasting in a lineup. And we were pushing the maturity boundaries and extracting pretty hard for a Pinot Noir. And so we were making these really big boisterous styles back then. And they would be so glaringly different that they got knocked by the critics. And so I just went out and I was like, well, I got to win with the consumer. I like this style better than this, trying to chase, the old world style. And I believed in it and kept going with it. And fortunately, other people liked it too. And that's kind of where it all started. So I do think that people will find the niche of style that they like within your product. And then it's a matter of you staying consistent, because consistency, I think, is one of the key elements.
Absolutely correct.
You have
Absolutely,
one
I
vintage,
agree with you.
one vintage off. And I mean, I've had times where it's like,
Yeah.
I'm going to skip that. You know, last bottle I had wasn't good, and I might not have a bottle of that for 5 years.
Totally.
Or even if you, not in terms of quality, but if you have a theme going within your wines, especially if it's under one brand, and you just decide, oh, I'm going to switch up and I'm going to make, I make all these, classic Sonoma County Chardonnays, but now I'm going to make this Chablis style within the same brand.
Yeah.
And people just shut you down immediately.
Yeah.
Like, nope,
Yeah.
that's not the style. But Mike, also to your question about, kind of how do you present something to the public or whatever. Quality is a very difficult thing to talk about, right? Everyone's got their perception. That being said, I think there are standards, and eventually, if someone's had enough wines, they're going to start to recognize what flaws might be. And while someone might like this wine and someone might like that wine, they might be great tasters. Even amongst our friends at my tasting yesterday, it was 8 winemakers, and we all had differences of opinion from time to time. But in general, we could go, yeah, I'm not buying that, but that's a wine of quality. This, and this. So you move up that ladder just through experience. And while it's absolutely true that you would say, that I would always say that the best glass of wine is the one that you like the best. It doesn't matter. Nothing else matters at all.
Yeah.
But if you do ask, over time, and if you took 10 or 15 of our friends and we sat down at a table, we would pretty much come to some consistent, agreements on what quality might be, or that might.
Well, standing the test of time, and something that Joe said that I think I felt like within this is very, very important, is consistency.
Yeah.
Right? When you can sell somebody on anything, whatever that is, once you've reached a level of quality that you accept in whatever your resources, whatever, you move to the Jeep or you move to the Volvo or whatever, that I mean, obviously that's not something that you're reconsuming over and over again, but you've hit something and you go, for whatever reason, you might not even have liked it at first, right? But something resonated with you, you thought about it again, you're like, damn, I got to go back to it. And you go back to it, and then you find it does tick something positive with you. You better be sure that the third time, fourth time, 15th time that it remains consistent, right?
Yeah.
That's your Topo Chico thing. You're like, I don't know. It's just the best damn bottle of water that there is. It's the same damn taste every single time.
And, this is an interesting observation, too, that, it's different. So most of the wines, Mike, that I make, I'm making, a couple of hundred, maybe, 1,000 cases at a time of a particular wine. And with one of Joe's brands, in particular, Maomi, I don't know what your largest vintage was. What were you up to?
Like 700,000 cases.
700,000 cases. Okay. And
huge.
So 700,000 cases means 8.5 million bottles. And you go into a winery and you try to fathom blending this volume of wine, physically making this happen, taking that volume of wine, blending it so it's consistent, and then getting it into the bottle with consistency, with oxygen pickup, with X, Y, and Z, with every cork, and the quality control measures that it requires. It's almost like it requires more attention than by the time my shit's bottled, you blink your eyes and it's over. It's almost like I can't do quality control because it's done. But they had to be so consistent because it's exactly what you said. People are almost more forgiving of my wine with there being bottle to bottle variation, right? They're just experiencing one thing. When someone became a fan of Maomi, they wanted that every single time. And trying to achieve that, Mike, it's an impossibility.
It turned at that scale. It turned into Coca-Cola. That's what it was. It was.
But that's not a criticism of Coca-Cola.
No,
do you know how hard it is to fucking make Coca-Cola?
Right.
No, it just comes down to that we're creatures of habit. We have an expectation, and people aren't looking at vintage when you're with like Maomi. I mean, actually, I'll tell you a little story about as I was growing Maomi, and it was just like going through the roof, and we're trying to keep up with it. We're buying more fruit, we're making more wine, we're using more facilities. Like it was a pain in the ass, but it was the first time that I ever, or anybody in my family ever, I guess, was like, let's see if we can supply the demand.
Yeah.
Like, great fun exercise. I learned a ton. I never want to do it again.
Yeah. That had to kick your ass.
Kick my ass, kick the whole team's ass, except the sales team. It was like a walk in the park for them. They're like, oh, we're gonna make bonus again this year. It's like,
right.
well, do you guys even meet with the distributors? Like, no, they're out having a good time. But I had a meeting with a guy that you and I both know very well. Say his first name, Corey.
Yep.
And so he was running a pretty large business. At the time, he's actually moved up into a larger wine business recently. But I asked him to just go grab lunch. I was like, I just have a couple questions. You've got experience with this. And so there were a couple things that he told me, because I was, asking him, like, how do you maintain fine wine when you get up to scale in hundreds of thousands of cases? Yeah. And he was talking not about the business he was working for, but really the industry in general. And he said a few things that really stuck out. And one was, he said, most producers at this level, they're just filling the requirements of the label. Right. So they're not making one blend. They're saying, like, all right. Oh, correct. It's like, all right, we're doing a Monterey County Pinot Noir from 2013. Yep. And it's like, well, hey, we sold 50,000 cases of that. We need more. You go to the bulk market. It's a marketplace where like physically you get samples sent to you, and you can buy these base wines, but there's so much variation. And so once a brand is a brand, and you try to make it as consistent as possible, but a lot of times you're going to have 4 different bottlings with the exact same label. Now, there's a danger to that, because I think over time people start to see that. Yeah. And that was, at that moment, that was when I was like, okay, that is my definition of commodity wine versus fine wine. 100%. We can do all of the care and dedication to every aspect of the process, and most importantly, blend it all as one, and then bottle it all as one. Yeah. We can still produce it as a fine wine. Right. Once we start breaking it up into all these segments, we're going to have inconsistencies here and there, and then it's commodity wine, and then we're 100%. And so that was a real big, I don't even think he intended for me to learn that element from him. Yeah. But that was the biggest part that I gathered from him in that conversation, and that fundamentally changed what I did, and that eventually led to the sale of the Maomi brand. Yeah. Because I got to a point where you couldn't do what you wanted to do. I couldn't make. I knew I was one more vintage. I was not going to be able to make the wine the way I wanted to. And you would go crazy. It would, well, and then you're asking yourself, what industry am I in? Am I in this massive growth commodity wine industry, or am I still in fine wine? I was like, sell the brand, invest in farmland, and just focus on everything I've always loved doing, and what you want to do. That's 100%. I was actually thinking, you were saying with your conversation, and he mentioning to you that one common thing, whether it's in, that happened to you, but in any walk of life, how many times isn't how crazy it is. And Mike, I'm sure you've had this experience where someone said something to you that changed your life, and they don't even remember it. Yeah. It's like, it's a cool thing. And then a third callback about me, how I got into the industry. So I said I had these 2 mentors. So I quit working at this restaurant when I'm like, 18. I go to college, whatever. I'm living in Atlanta. I'm in my driveway in Atlanta, packing up the U-Haul to move to California to go to Davis. And riding down the sidewalk on his bicycle is Serge, my mentor from, and I hadn't seen him in 4 years. And he was like, I was like, Serge? And he's like, Robbie? And he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, you are not going to fucking believe this. Wow. I'm moving to California to go make wine. And he got off his bike, kicks the kickstand down, and was like so proud. That man changed my life. That's awesome. That man changed my entire life. Yeah. And he didn't freaking know. He was like, he liked me, but it was kind of like making fun of this stupid young kid. He was knowledgeable, old grumpy. He was kind of grumpy, but I loved him. He loved me, but he changed my life. Well, and going back to your old story about the 64 Margaux, he very well could have been like, hey, check this out. He's going to get his ass reamed out by this table. Right. Go ask him for a glass of the 64 Margaux. Yeah. And they're probably just sitting there by the bar like, oh, that's funny. Right. That's right. And they gave you a glass. Yeah. And maybe I earned street cred. Maybe that's like they liked me afterwards because I did that.
Totally. But sliding doors, the magic that happens in life. You don't know from door to door to path to path to farm, what's going on. But You're exactly right. Amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I got to check in with Corey and see if he, because I don't know if I've ever told him that to his face.
Yeah.
I mean, I went hunting with him 2 years ago, and we got a lot of conversation going, but I don't think I brought that up to him. So I'll have to give him a call and just say, hey, just so you know,
All right,
you're
so,
the reason we sold Miami.
So, yeah.
He's gonna be like, "Where's my
where's my
cut?
check?"
Where's-"
Yeah, exactly. So hold on, this is a complete change of topic, but talking about Napa Valley, Northern California rednecks or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I'm growing up in Atlanta and in the suburbs in Marietta, and we had lots of country boys around us. And I would not have considered myself, the country boy. I was not playing baseball and football. I was playing soccer. So I was already suspect as being
I was going to
Southern,
ask. So there was a judgment element in there.
Of course
Yeah,
there was.
yes,
I wasn't
sure.
drinking Budweisers. I was looking for the '64 Margell. So I was already on the outs. So my brother was big and still is a big hunter, and whatever else. So, my son Wynn.
Yeah.
So he has gotten into hunting with, through my brother. But more recently, he wanted to go out. My nephew was living here. So I went out and bought some guns. And we've been going out like boar hunting on the
nice.
on the Sonoma coast. And we're starting our own Pope Valley Gun Club. And so it's like me, Kent Jarman, a bunch of other guys are going out there. You're welcome to come.
That is awesome.
But it's very fun. Like Vingy.
Yeah.
So,
of course he's going to be in it. Yeah.
Of course. So it's very funny to me. It was like this thing, like, if I'm in Atlanta, I'm thinking about, I'm going to move to Napa Valley and I'm going to be hanging out with these, cool winemakers. The last thing in my mind I would have been thinking of is like, they're going hunting. You want to go shoot some boar? So that's such a Southern thing.
It is, but it's actually part of the life around here. But
totally it is.
But you still see, like, you're talking about the person that buys a house that's, right up against a vineyard and thinking like, oh, I love the beauty, but I don't want all the stuff that comes with agriculture. It's kind of the same thing. You have this discrepancy between the people that have been here for a long time or that, have come from other areas that carry that similar cultures. And so we're out shooting all the time. I mean, like, I'm going for opening day I'm going to Pope Valley dove hunting tomorrow afternoon.
Oh, nice.
And so while I'm down here after this podcast, I got to go get some steel shocks with them in California. And, it's
yes, it's very funny. So like I didn't spend a lot of time going into gun stores in Georgia. But it is very funny. Here you go and go to Sweeney's, and they almost criticize their own California laws.
Oh, totally.
They're like, God damn, it's California, so let me have your fucking license. See you in 10 days. And they're pissed off about it. But.
So it's still the same. It's the same people that are out here. They're working at the gun shop too.
It is. I mean, we have so many regulations here overall. I mean, I'm not just talking about guns, but
of course.
In our industry and farming and building and God, everything is just. Like, how do you even? I mean, I look back. I'm like, I don't remember running a business being this hard, in like 20 years ago.
Yeah,
and it's just now you try to get something done, and you're in just this mill of the government and going through if you want permits or whatever, and it's so damn hard. And I don't know how we're going to get away from it because once you put taxes in place, once you put regulations in place, I mean, it is so hard to pull those things back, and I mean, my philosophy on this is that it actually kind of funnels up to giving the government more power and having the citizens rely upon them more, which is the ass backwards from democracy, right?
Completely.
In my opinion. So, at what point do we say we got to pull all these things back? And, I'm still thinking maybe it's a good idea if we just randomly select people to take these roles.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Just like, Robbie, you're the mayor now.
Yeah, exactly. You got it for 4 years. Don't screw it up.
Exactly. I like this. Well, and again, that goes back to not only, thank you for investing in developing a restaurant here in Napa so that we can promote Napa and lift that up. But, thank you for going through the pain in the ass of dealing with the city, of dealing with the county, of dealing with the state, and all of the, God forbid, the regulations and requirements and permits that you have to get. And it's like, I'm trying to do something here for the community. Yeah. Sure, I want to make a buck, but I would like to not have a vacant storefront there. I would like to have a nice, cool, beautiful restaurant that people can come to. Can you let me build it? And it's like they don't want to let you build it.
Even when you go in with, so I got a really good example. We were going to build a small winery over in Sebastopol, over in Russian River Valley. At one of our, actually, it's at the Dairyman.
I thought that, yeah.
So we went through the whole process. We had our eye on the prize, and so we went through all the design. You got to go through all the design and all the engineering before you submit.
Correct.
Now, with a winery, you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you sink all that cost in, you go in, and then you're up for public review, and you've got all of these changes that they want you to make. You got to go back to design, then back to engineering, and make adjustments. Not as grand as what the original concept might have been, but still add another 100,000 on.
Completely.
And so you're all of a sudden, before you even get your permit, you're sunk hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And you're like, this doesn't work. Like this, you have to be a millionaire or a billionaire to really start a business in this state now.
Yeah. You'll I don't want to tell you because you're going to uproot everything and move to Georgia, but my I
love Georgia.
My best friend was now he's in more finance with building, but was custom home builder. My brother is a land planner, and I tell them all these stories and they're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
We want to build a house. We go down to the county and go, I'd like a permit. And that's like $10 and they give you a permit same day.
God,
that's
really?
nothing.
I've never had any experience remotely similar to that. But I do love Georgia. I've had a blast down there. I was actually down there, like 2 months ago. And the people are great. It's a beautiful environment. I actually think the weather is phenomenal. I love Georgia all the way through the Carolinas.
Oh,
It's a great spot. And the only thing Georgia's got to do is you got to get rid of that Sunday no alcohol.
It's changed. When I was little, it was zero, and then it switched to afternoon in restaurants. You can get it.
Yeah.
And then what is it now, Mike?
It's 12:30 at 12:30, which is also a funny thing.
Well, that's so you can go to church first.
You got to be at church. You got to be sober.
It really is. It's part of that. The psychology of church is the early part of the day.
Yeah.
Even though, how filled are the churches? I don't know. As we know, a lot of cultural things kind of die off with generations, and so there's kind of slowly weaning those kids. I really do think the Gen Zers, they don't have a concept now. Like the ones that were raised here, Atlanta, where I am, is very a transient city. So, most people are like, where are you from? It's hilarious when I say I'm from here, like you did, Joe, that you said you're from here, right? I was born into here. They're baffled the fact if someone is actually from Atlanta. But this thing I've heard so many times about who sets a time and a day and or a time of day that you can or can't drink, that we're not talking about 2 a.m. at this point in time, nothing good's going to happen for you going in and out, or we get those, but the day you can't. My day it's the same as a Wednesday at noon, and I want to go into a restaurant and I can't have a glass of wine. What does I do? So it's slowly evolving out of that.
Yeah. So the Sunday experience I had most recently was it was really funny. The restaurant opened at I think it was 11:30, and they were doing brunch, and so me and my wife were we're like, oh, we'll do this, and we can't serve that until whatever. I thought it was noon, but 12:30.
Yeah,
and man, the whole restaurant is full by 12:30.
Right.
And they have a bar that is full of drinks with tags
waiting
ready to go.
Yeah.
12:30 drops, and it's just zoomed straight to the table, and there's alcohol everywhere.
It's so stupid. It makes no
really
sense.
And think about those as a restaurateur, right? Think about the bane of that. By the way, I may have said that you can get it in the shop at 12:30. I think there's a weird window. It may be noon. It may be 11:30 for restaurants. So how ridiculous, how funny is that?
You can get it in the restaurant, but you can't get it in the bottle shop. You can get it in the bottle shop.
Walk into the bottle shop. So, just that deal. But imagine, again, being a restaurateur.
Yeah.
You have, you're packed for lunch, brunch, or whatever that you have on Sunday. And you're like, oh my God, I can't serve all of these drinks. These people want to have that glass of wine with the steak or whatever they're getting right now. Can't do it.
It's funny. I mean, and state by state, and we're one of the only places in the world, the United States, that really has so many regulations. You sell, a pallet of wine to you're an importer in Germany, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's there. They can sell it anywhere.
Yeah.
We have so many different regulations, all in the wake of prohibition. And, I
Sure.
look at some of the stuff that's going on in the world right now. And, I think, whatever side of the aisle you stand on, there are some good things that have come about from any sort of regulation. Like, I actually like that you can't smoke cigarettes in restaurants.
For sure. For sure.
So that's a good thing. But and now, those cigarette ads are pulled from, billboards. You're not allowed to do them on TV, all that stuff. Like, all that stuff happened years ago. Now I'm driving up and down the highway and I'm seeing all of these billboards and a bunch of advertisements for places to buy weed, right?
Yeah.
For dispensaries.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm like,
Out here, not so much in Atlanta, but here, everywhere.
Yeah. So I'm looking at that. I'm like, they didn't even try to replicate the tobacco stuff they had over here to something that is, I mean, it may not be as bad of a cancer causing product. And then you got different vessels, right? You got gummies and all that. But nonetheless, I mean, if kids get into that early, it does affect them. Hell, if I was getting high every day, I would not be anywhere near as successful as I am.
Right.
No, and I know some people operate well with that, but I'll take a gummy every couple nights and knock myself out. They feel great.
Yeah.
But what you said, Joe, you said the same thing. If you throughout your day were drinking alcohol,
as we're having a sip, you're saying that we each had a sip of wine.
No. This is okay. This is a segue into our Topo Chico collaboration. But you know what I'm saying? If it was an everyday, like you woke up and whether it be alcohol or you're taking your gummy or whatever, again, I'm generalizing to speak for everyone. It doesn't seem that would be the best processes to do that you could be the best of yourself.
There's no way.
Right?
Yeah. And so you got to look at it from the standpoint of free will, because at the end of the day, everybody has free will. And you can choose, if I wanted to wake up in the morning and drink a whole bottle of wine, I could, but I can guarantee you be the beginning of the end of my success.
Yeah. There's no doubt. It really is. I mean, again, people from the outside, I say it's like a, what do you call it? Like a work hazard. And people are like, oh, that's funny. We drink wine all day. And it's like, no, I literally can't. I've talked to Mike about this, I'll go on, sabbaticals where, of course, we have to taste a fermentation tank. We have to taste something, but, I'll go, months and months and months and months without having a casual, glass or bottle of wine, because we're so inundated with it. It's so much in your face all the time. And just like, you show up at my house, you have a bottle of your one. You're coming over, so I have bottle, because we want to share. But at the same time, it's like, and then when you say, "Oh, no, I'm not drinking right now," people are like, "What's wrong?"
That is
something
so,
happened to you.
True.
It's like nothing. I just don't want to drink alcohol right now. But
I think it's good to number one, just to do a detox, but also to challenge yourself to be able to make sure your mind is still
mind over matter.
Yeah, you can accomplish this. The last time I did a 90-day stint, no drinking. And felt amazing. Like,
of
it was.
Course.
I hate to say it.
I know, because we're criticizing your own thing. But no, I feel like $1 million.
And I'm about to start. I'm going to step up from on this one. I'm at this 75 hard thing.
Oh, I don't know this. No.
So it's like there's no alcohol, no added sugar, no snacking. So 3 square meals a day. But you can kind of eat whatever you want during those square meals. And then you got to work out twice a day for 45 minutes each. One of them being outdoors. You got to read 10 pages of a book a day. Yeah. A lot of this stuff is very small.
I got to look this up. Okay. But I like all of it.
Yeah. It's all small and mundane, but at the same time, you got to look at it like, okay, I can challenge myself. And I'll be tasting barrels. There might be a day where I'm tasting 200 barrels, but I'm spitting. Yeah. And I'm still going to get a buzz, and I'm still not going to count that as drinking. Because,
I agree with you.
Sure.
We have to.
Yeah. Just part of
have to do it.
But I've got to check that out. 75 hard. Are you familiar with this, Mike?
I've heard of that before. Okay. I'm right there with you, Joe, in terms of like changing. We were having the conversation about this earlier today. We were talking about, I was mentioning, because at 3:00 noon your time, I said, I go into routines, I would say of positive behavior. Whether I'm fasting, I do somewhat of intermittent fasting all the time now that I've adjusted to that I have started taking a little nap at about 3:00, 30 minutes, right? My body was funny that Robbie and I are talking, that I was like, man, I don't have to even look at a clock because my body's getting in a cycle
Yeah.
that like all of these processes are like triggers, like my own alarm clocks are happening because what you said, exercise, eating right, drink, the right type of things, not doing this, doing these things, not doing these things. But I said, here's the thing. I have this thing, I'll even journal that I'm like, man, it's so great. I feel so healthy right now. And boom, there's that time that you throw it off, that you feel like you have to like reshuffle your card deck. And that reshuffling of my card deck is for whatever reason. Just like what you said, you may have 30, 60, 90 days or whatever that you're clean. That what is it within us that says we have to blow that up at some point?
It's over. The 90 days is over. I've got to break free.
Yeah,
free will. That's what it is.
That's what it is. Is that what it is?
I think it's free will, but it's also like if you constantly challenge yourself, even just those things that are like they may seem mundane in your personal life. Well, you're going to carry that same mentality into every aspect of your life, right?
Yeah, sure.
I carry that mentality into my conversations with my kids. I had a very tough conversation with my oldest daughter yesterday, and it was really about like, challenging her to open up and find a deeper reason. Now she wants to join the Marines, and I'm totally a huge fan, and I'm a big supporter of armed forces, but it seemed like a very quick sort of adoption of the idea. And I've always asked her whenever we go out shooting, I'm like, you want to come up? And, she has mentioned in the past that she wanted to be a sniper. And I'm like, cool, I'm all for it. So we sat down yesterday, had an hour conversation, and it was like going through the list of stuff. What do you, what is the inspiration for this? What do you plan on doing afterwards? What do you expect it to be like? And she did a little camp thing down at Camp Pendleton over the summer, and got kind of the curtailed version of what boot camp would look like, and was surprised about they yell at you and all that, all this stuff. Like, well,
right.
Watch any movie of the military and you're going to know exactly what it's like. So so she wanted me, because she's 17, so she wanted me to go and sign her up. And I said, no, I want to talk to you about this first. And she was very upset at the end when I said, here are the 3 things I want you to do, and we'll revisit this in 2 weeks. I'll go down there and I'll sign the release before your 18th birthday, so that she can move up a rank in kind of the junior, I can't remember what they call it. But so I was like, all right, we'll do that. But she's very upset with me. But I think that sort of thing, like teaching her to challenge herself, like she had like a 50% idea in her mind, and there were so many holes in it. It was like, you got to fill all the holes.
And that's calling being 17 years old.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I understand that, but took it as an opportunity to, hey, push it farther.
Yeah, for sure.
Because, of course, there are worries for me, and I'm like, there are other opportunities, but if this is what your calling is, and I get it. I mean, I almost joined the military right after 9/11.
Yeah.
And I probably could have and should have, but it's just a matter of challenging yourself and learning how to challenge yourself. Because honestly, throughout the world, it seems like everybody stagnates and you just get lazy, and it's so easy to be lazy.
Mm-hmm.
And
sure.
How do you break that cycle?
Yeah, for sure. And that also culminates in an interesting thing, which is, your eldest daughter and eldest son and your other son and whatever. And my children are constantly at the gym. So in your 75 big whatever, why don't you show up at Hellspawn Napa Valley with us, and we'll hit the weights together. But that actually why it's such a good tie-in. One is, Winton, he wants to go to the Naval Academy.
Okay.
And so probably when they're working out, they're talking Marines and everything like that. And as a side note, he went to Annapolis this summer. He went through a training program, for that. His squadron leader was this woman who was, I don't know how tall she was. She was tiny, and she was badass, and she's a Marine.
All right.
And she was doing, stuff this summer. So your daughter can handle all of it. I know she can.
That's awesome.
But also funny with them hanging out at the gym, why you're here is because I don't know where I was, and I get a text from Winton, and he goes, who you should have on the podcast is Joe Wagner.
No way, really?
Yeah, it was. So you're here because of Winton.
Oh, that's great. That's
and I was like, that's actually a very good recommendation. I think I'll text him right now. And that's how I texted you. I was like, can you come on the podcast? So
it is great to see that the kids are going to the gym. And, it's like, I don't like some of the stuff they're doing with the pre-workout and the protein stuff.
Oh, God, they're so.
I'm like, you guys are going to be able to eat whatever you want for the next 10 years of your life, and then you're going to have to cut it out. But like, enjoy this. And they're like, no, I'm counting my calories, how many protein or grams of protein I'm taking, all this stuff. I'm like, you know what? I just stopped complaining. I was like, you know what, you guys,
it's better than there's other things that could be involved.
I am so happy you're going to the gym.
Yeah.
Like 1 or 2 times a day.
Yeah.
And these kids are getting big.
They're getting big quick. They're strong. I mean, but they're dedicated. Every time I go in, I see lots of kids, but I'll see one of our 2 families in there.
Wesley,
every
Mia,
single
Dominic.
time. I mean, one or Will or Win or whatever. But
they're dedicated, and I think that is a reflection of the social media, mostly TikTok.
Yeah,
because that became like a craze with this the Liver King guy. You know the guy.
Oh yeah.
And so some of these crazy workout guys, and some of the stuff they were saying was not fully true.
Sure,
but it was also it also was an aspirational figure.
Sure.
And there's other horrible things on TikTok that they could be following. If they're into food and nutrition and working out, God bless them. I'll support it. But hey, you know what? Speaking of free will, I could sit here and do this all day, and I think, and I'm looking over at Mike because this is exactly what that I'm hoping for these conversations is that I have no. You see here, I don't have any notes.
Oh yeah,
I just want to come and hang out and talk, and so thank you for coming in and doing this. And again, I asked you about your brands, but you're working on a podcast right now, aren't you? Or you're talking about it or thinking about it?
We got about 30 in the hopper right now.
Okay, good. But you've not published yet?
No, we released them. We just started to publicize them. So just on our social channels and whatever else, sending notes out to the trade, that sort of thing. So trying to keep it a little,
It's funny because I don't remember you calling me to be on the podcast. I didn't get the email yet.
We just had our first guest. So it's me and another guy, the co-host. His name is Chris, and it's called Go With Your Palate.
Okay.
And the way that we phrase it is that it's about wine, entrepreneurship, and whatever the fuck else.
Okay.
And there's a lot of whatever the fuck else.
Yeah.
Sorry if I shouldn't be.
No. And that's what ours is too. It's food and beverage based, but it's really about whatever we're talking about.
Never know where it's going to go. And so we just had our first guest on. So we want to start getting more into that and learning how to, develop the studio to accommodate whatever else. And it's been really fun. And we have a lot of stuff that comes out. And I know my whole sales, department, they're all listening to it and they're like giving me crap about it. And it's like, there's a whole fun part of it,
and it'll evolve and develop. Yeah, it'll change. And so, sorry again, the title.
So we'll have to have you on it.
Of course.
So go with your palate.
Go with your palate, and you can find it wherever you find your podcast. Don't you like how they say that on every podcast?
Wherever you find
it on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcast. Well, of course. Why the fuck did you make that statement? Of course, I know that. Okay, and then I think probably why. The Winton brought you up is because I know that he follows you on your Instagram or TikTok or whatever. What is your social media finds?
So God, I gotta go into the history on this, and this is probably another good element about talking about getting out of your comfort zone.
Right.
All right. So the pandemic, which here in California we were heavily affected. I don't know if Georgia was,
of course
it was.
Yeah.
So I just felt like we were shut down for a solid year, and then it was still regulated for another solid year in a pretty heavy fashion. So
not as much in Georgia as here, but
and so during that time, it was like, well, how do we communicate with people and get them to get excited about our wines? And so we turned to Facebook, Instagram, did collaborations with retailers, with restaurants, national accounts. That they were providing food for takeout, and our wines were part of that. And you're looking at a screen, and you're in like 100 people's, dining rooms, and you can see them. And it turned into this thing of like, it wasn't really so much about education; it was more about entertainment,
having fun.
Sure.
And they were like, I want something fresh, live, and correlating to this experience I'm having here with my family of food and wine. And so I had to kind of get out of my bubble of what I normally do when I'm talking about my business and everything.
And general comfort level.
And,
of like being it, because like when we do wine dinners, being an entertainer. And it's not something we always like to do.
None of us are naturally programmed to do that. I think it's, and so in the wake of the pandemic, we've got, person in social media that was doing Facebook and Instagram. And she was like, you should get on TikTok.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't even want to be on.
I don't want to look at
Yeah.
it.
I don't want people to know my face. Like when I
Right.
walk into a room, I like my privacy. And she was like, no, I think this is a big thing. And I was like, first of all, like I'm not into dancing, that whole thing.
Yeah.
She's like, no, it's moving towards more of a search engine. And now today it actually has more searches worldwide than Google does.
Yeah.
Which is really surprising to me. So we started off, we had a little fun with it, and I got out of my comfort zone just to try it. And then added some education in there and just kind of let, my personality, which I felt like I had let go during the pandemic, just let my personality show and not really care about what people are going to think about it. And, we got our haters, but we got our lovers too.
And what is the handle?
Joe the Winemaker on TikTok.
Joe the Winemaker on TikTok. And is there Instagram, or I've probably just seen the
there is
TikTok.
Instagram. There's Joe Wagner official, and then we have each of our brands on Instagram too. Instagram seems like it's a pretty mature platform, and TikTok is still growing, but now you're getting adoption of TikTok from the adults.
Yeah.
Where it started off with just dances, and
which
fun
is the
stuff.
sign of death.
Yeah, exactly.
Facebook is dead because of moms, and then Instagram is dying, and then TikTok. As soon as we're talking, the end is near. As soon as we're talking about it, but
well, and so I've been trying to encourage people, and there are very few. I mean, you're one of them to try to get into TikTok. Now, we're like, well, can we get paid for this? Because we're actually, large enough now. We're like, we'd make money. Well, I still have a little bit of concern about providing my information.
right.
They want your social security number,
Sure.
your tax returns, all
Sure.
that stuff. And I'm like, nope, don't worry about the money. This is all just about education.
I'm good here.
And so we've been having quite a bit of fun with it. We have, what I'll say that I can see is that we have a link tree.
Yeah.
You know what that is, where so in your profile, it just like, it's a link that goes to a page that has all of these other links. So if you want from TikTok, if you want to go see our Instagram, if you want to go to our YouTube, if you want to go to our wine shop or whatever, we saw, and you can track that through the apps, right? Because of social media, we saw a doubling of our direct business within a year.
That's amazing.
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. And I was about to quit because I didn't like when I have people come up to me and go like, oh, I saw you on TikTok.
Yeah.
I'm like, I actually make wine. That's what I'm known for. Like I don't, I'm not a TikToker.
Yeah, I'm a TikTok super. After all the work you did and dedicating your whole life to farming and making wine, I'm a TikToker.
Exactly. It's like, no, I'm not gonna go down to that level. So that I thought that was pretty funny. But then I saw the correlation on the direct business. And I was like, wow, this is a powerful tool.
For sure.
Yes.
For sure.
And
that's
the stuff I can't quantify, where that's
no.
where people are understanding our wines a little more and they see them on the shelf and whatever. So that I got to assume there's been a little uptick, and we're growing. So maybe a part of that growth is from that. I don't know.
Of course it is. Yeah.
I was going to say, in fact, this could not be in this thing or whatever. It's so funny that everything that you just said, Joe, this was with my creative partner. I have a little agency, a creative production, make video agency that I've had. I work with a lot of craft brewers and nonprofits or whatever. That it's so funny. Everything that you just said about TikTok, I had said today about us. This applies to all of us in a certain age. That I was like, we kind of got to blow this thing up. What we're using right now, which is, it's funny. I make ads for people, but I don't promote myself in new avenues because there's things that I simply don't understand as well. Just like you said, someone bringing TikTok to you to be like, I got off of the old boomer Facebook and I'm on Instagram because it feels cool and mature to me. And I go on TikTok, but I don't quite understand it because it's a brand new house that I haven't lived in. I don't know where the furniture is. So I skip off of it. Right. But you're right. You have to it's almost like this whole deal has come full circle. When you said you moved to Napa, people didn't understand, they didn't understand what was going on here. Wines was over here in France. And you've had to evolve and change with everything. You've had your TikTok, the social media influencer thing that you became with your bottles, how you dipped and you've evolved into even getting into social media with your marketing now.
You just got to look at it like take every opportunity and see if it works. Give it enough time. I mean, podcasts are a great example. It's like you never know how successful they're going to be.
Oh, this is going to be very successful. Once we get that Topo Chico sponsorship, I'm knocking the walls down. I'm going big time.
And circling
Topo Chico TikTok dances, Robbie over here in one window doing something. Oh my God.
But it's like anything else, and we were talking about it earlier. Consistency. You stay consistent with what you're doing, even in podcasts, and over time, you're going to garner more people.
Yeah,
that are following it. I think that's just part of what we should all expect to be doing in life.
Absolutely,
right.
Maintaining consistency.
Amen.
All right. Well, I think we've run the time dry. I'm going to say thanks to Joey Wagner. I'm still sticking with Joey. I guess
I'm good with it.
I think it's funny. I think in my phone you're Joe, but if the word comes out of my mouth, I'm sticking with Joey. But thank you. And as we say, the title of our podcast here, Drop the Check. It's this type of thing. I was saying to Mike, I like that we're actually here at the table because it's exactly what I'm talking about. Having a glass with someone sitting down, and these are conversations we have. And when we're done, we're drop the check. And I think that's where we're at. So if we've covered things that we need to cover until I'm on your podcast.
That's it. I was going to say
we'll pick up right there.
We'll get a date. Thank you guys for having me. It's been a great conversation. Looking forward to doing more.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Mike, we good?
You know what it's time for?
Drop the check. Well, I just thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I mean, it's I kind of hear these things. Well, no, I don't hear these things all day, every day.
Sure.
I work with these people all day, every day, but I don't get to hear the ins and outs. I mean, you could hear there's things that like I never knew about Joe or his background or story or whatever. And I feel like I've known him for 25 years. You'd think I would know these things, and some things you just don't get around to. And that's why it's nice to have these conversations with people. Kind of like we were saying, like if and for the listener out there, just like if we sat down for a 2-hour lunch and just reminisce, this is the things that we'd be talking about.
Right. I like using the technique that I have of, I don't know anything, and nor do I want to research anything about these guests for the most part.
That's
because
right.
I don't want to have any kind of preconceived notion of any of them. I want this to be as Drop the Check should be. We're having dinner conversation and find out about people in this organic way. So it was really cool to know about Joey Joseph. And also, I really do have to say, I super appreciate him getting into TikTok, right? Because we at our age, we have the diversity of age groups. We know with our kids being teenagers, our kids being teenagers, there's different tiers of what you know and what you do. You're a boomer, you're out of date, this much or whatever. So the fact that he embraced, what the hell? What am I going to do? Dance? TikTok.
Yeah.
And that has shown to be successful for him. I think that there may be like a Topo Chico dance.
Yes.
In our future.
I like that. That's a great one.
Topo Chico dance.
You can do the whole because you're into that film stuff. You could do all kinds of stuff. Some sound of the my favorite sound of opening.
Oh my God! Like you're writing this for me. I'm also into dancing. That'll be my part. You just make up the song.
Okay, fair enough. I can do that.
Okay, well, that's it, man.
Yeah, but that's it for the Joe episodes. But we got stuff coming down the pipe. We got Joshua Schwartz,
yes,
great chef. We have Matthew Rourke, legend. My gosh, I'm so excited. I am too. All right, let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's get out of here.
Okay. Hey, let's drop the check.
Let's drop the check, please. Hey, friends. Thanks for joining us on Drop the Check podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow and subscribe to Drop the Check podcast on all your streaming services, Instagram or YouTube. And of course, dropthecheckpodcast.com. As always, Drop the Check is brought to you by Pearson Meyer Wines. Pearson Meyer, really, really good wine. Join us next week for a special guest. Not going to say who it is, but he likes to catch fishes, cook really tasty dishes. He might even like Topo Chico. Find out who it is next week on Drop the Check podcast.